Imagine you wake up tomorrow and every single word you've ever learned is gone. You still know who your family is. You still know you're hungry. But the moment you open your mouth, nothing meaningful comes out. No help, no run, no food, no names, no questions, no stories, just sounds. Now imagine you're standing in a forest 100,000 years ago. The sun is beginning to disappear behind the trees. And somewhere nearby, something large lets out a deep growl. You hear it. Your family hears it too. You know everyone needs to leave, fast. But how do you tell them? How do you explain that the sound came from behind the hill, that you saw fresh footprints near the river this morning, that taking the usual path home could get everyone killed? Today, you'd say it in a few seconds. Back then, you couldn't. Language is so deeply woven into modern life that most of us never notice it's there. Every thought you have, every memory you share, every joke you tell, every plan you make depends on thousands of words working together almost effortlessly. But for most of human history, those words didn't exist. There were no conversations around the fire, no names for mountains, no bedtime stories, no way to ask, what if? And yet, somehow, our ancestors survived. They hunted animals much stronger than themselves. They protected children who couldn't defend themselves. They shared food, built shelters, discovered fire, crossed dangerous landscapes, and eventually spread across nearly every corner of the planet. They achieved all of that before language looked anything like it does today. So how? How do you teach a child to make a spear without explaining it? How do you organize a hunt with 10 people if no one can say, you go left, I'll go right? And perhaps the biggest question of all, if nobody could speak the way we do now, how did humans ever invent language in the first place? To answer that, we first have to forget everything we think communication is, because long before humans spoke with words, they were already having conversations in ways that might surprise you. The first thing to understand is that ancient humans weren't silent. That's a common misconception. They laughed, they cried, they screamed in pain. Babies called for their mothers. Adults warned each other of danger. They made sounds, gestures, and expressions every single day. What they probably didn't have was a fully developed language with grammar, long sentences, and thousands of words like we use today. Scientists still debate exactly when modern language appeared. Some believe it emerged around 70,000 years ago. Others think its roots may stretch back much further. The truth is, no one knows for certain because spoken words don't leave fossils behind. But there is one thing almost every researcher agrees on. Language didn't appear overnight. It evolved slowly over countless generations. Imagine you're watching a hunting group preparing to leave camp. Nobody says, let's head north, circle behind the herd, and meet back here before sunset. Instead, the leader points toward the valley. Another hunter taps his chest. Someone else raises a spear. Everyone watches. Everyone understands. Their communication isn't built from sentences. It's built from shared experience. If you've hunted together 100 times before, a single gesture can mean far more than a paragraph of explanation. Think about how much you communicate today without speaking. A friend raises an eyebrow. Someone points toward the exit. A parent reaches out their arms and a child instantly runs over. You understand all of it without a single word. Now imagine your entire life worked like that. Your face became part of your vocabulary. Your hands became your sentences. Your eyes told people where to look. Your body became the language. And it wasn't just gestures. The human face is incredibly expressive. Fear, anger, happiness, disgust, surprise. People from almost every culture on Earth recognize these emotions almost instantly. Long before written history, our ancestors were probably reading each other's faces every single day to decide whether something was safe or whether it was time to run. But gestures and facial expressions had one major problem. They only worked when everyone could see each other. If someone disappeared over a hill, if darkness fell, or if a hunting party became separated, most of that communication vanished. To survive in a world full of predators, rivers, storms, and unfamiliar landscapes, humans would eventually need something much more powerful than pointing and facial expressions. They would need a way to share ideas that no one could actually see, and that simple change would transform our species. But gestures and facial expressions could only take our ancestors so far. Imagine you're tracking a herd of deer through a dense forest. One hunter spots fresh footprints leading east. Another notices broken branches farther ahead. A third hears movement somewhere beyond the trees. Each person has a different piece of the puzzle. The problem is, how do you combine those pieces into one plan? Pointing isn't enough anymore. This is where scientists believe simple sounds began to change into something much more meaningful. At first, a sound may have represented only one idea. A short, sharp call might have meant danger. A different sound could have meant come here. Another might have meant food. Many animals already do something similar today. Monkeys use different alarm calls for snakes, leopards, and eagles. Birds have warning calls that send an entire flock into the air within seconds. But humans eventually did something no other animal has ever mastered. We started combining sounds. Instead of making one call for one situation, we began putting sounds together to create entirely new meanings. That single ability changed everything. Suddenly, you didn't have to wait until danger was right in front of you. You could warn someone before they saw it. You could explain what happened yesterday. You could prepare for tomorrow. For the first time, knowledge no longer had to disappear when an experience ended. An old hunter who had survived dozens of winters didn't have to rely only on younger people watching him. He could describe where the river froze first. He could explain which berries made people sick. He could warn children about the cave that always attracted bears during the cold season. Instead of every generation learning through painful mistakes, people could begin learning from each other. And that may have been one of the greatest survival advantages our species ever developed. Knowledge started accumulating. Each generation inherited not just tools, but experience. Not just fire, but the understanding of how to make it. Not just a path through the forest, but the reasons it was safe. Scientists sometimes call this cumulative culture, the ability for information to build over time instead of starting from scratch with every new generation. Without it, civilization would never have existed. But perhaps the most extraordinary thing language gave us wasn't better hunting or safer travel. It was something much stranger. For the first time in Earth's history, one creature could place an idea inside another creature's mind. You could describe a mountain your friend had never seen. You could imagine tomorrow before it happened. You could invent stories about people who didn't exist. You could ask questions no one had ever asked before. That ability would eventually lead to myths, religions, science, cities, and every civilization that followed. But before language could change the entire world, it first had to change the human brain itself. At some point, something remarkable happened. No one knows exactly when. No one knows exactly where. There wasn't a single day when the first complete sentence was spoken. No tribe woke up one morning and suddenly started talking the way we do today. Language didn't arrive like flipping on a light switch. It grew. One generation learned a few more sounds. The next generation combined them in new ways. Children made communication a little more efficient than their parents had. Then their children improved it again. Tiny changes repeated over thousands of generations slowly became one of the most powerful tools evolution had ever created. And once language reached a certain point, everything began to accelerate. Imagine discovering a better way to make a spear. Without language, that knowledge might disappear when you died. With language, you could teach your children. Your children could improve it. Their children could improve it again. Instead of every generation starting from the beginning, human knowledge began to stack, like building blocks. Over thousands of years, those blocks became farming, villages, cities, ships, writing, mathematics, medicine, computers, and eventually, the phone you're probably holding right now. Every invention you've ever used can be traced back to one simple ability, the ability to pass an idea from one mind to another. That's what language really is. Not just words, not just sounds, but shared knowledge. Even today, language continues to shape the way you experience the world, the voice inside your head, the memories you replay, the plans you make for tomorrow, the stories you tell yourself about who you are. All of them exist because your ancestors slowly transformed simple gestures and instinctive sounds into something far greater. So the next time you have a conversation, send a text, or tell someone about your day, remember that you're using one of humanity's oldest and greatest inventions. An invention built over hundreds of thousands of years by people who once stood around the fire, looking at one another, trying to say something, long before they had the words to say it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed exploring what life was really like for our ancient ancestors, don't forget to subscribe. There are many more forgotten stories from the Stone Age still waiting to be uncovered, and we'll explore them together in the next video.